This story was submitted anonymously. All credit to the user has been given and all consent has been given to me. Thank you and please enjoy. It all started early one day at the end of the second semester of my second high school year. Me and my friends were going to walk down to the cafe and get some drinks, but I got a call from my mom telling me to come straight home. We lived near a forest that I used to take all the time to get home quick, but my friends started giving me rides most often. This particular day, none of my friends had their car with them, so I had to go home through the woods. It was getting a little bit late, and I expected a scolding from my mom since I decided to ignore her text for a couple hours before actually reading it. When I got into the woods, I was having an eerie feeling that someone or something was just watching me. I know it sounds cliche, but I figured a ghost or a murderer was close to me. I picked up the pace of my walking just to make sure. I started to hear footsteps other than mine from behind me. I whipped out my phone quick and texted my mom saying I think someone was following me through the woods. She said that she didn't want to hear anything from me until I got home. Typical mom. If you haven't already guessed, I'm a girl. I'm 17 years old. So I was a perfect target for any special predators. I kept walking briskly just to make sure that he didn't catch up to me, whoever was behind me. Except I heard the footsteps start to pick up, faster and faster. I panicked and dropped my phone and sprinted just as fast as I could, but it wasn't fast enough. Not even a moment later, whoever was chasing me was already on top of me. They tackled me and pinned me down. They put a sack over my head and hit me in the head with a club or a bat or something, completely knocking me out. When I woke up, I was in a chair, hastily tied up, of course. Whoever was doing this wasn't very good at it. I could almost get my hands free immediately, but as soon as I almost got them, somebody opened the door. They had a deep, raspy voice. "Is this the girl? She's so skinny." I didn't know whether to take it as an insult at this point. I was so full of fear I didn't know what to do. The other voice said, "She was alone. That's all I could get." I figured that they were sex traffickers or something. I nuzzled my hand into my back pocket to try and pull out my pocket knife and tie out and cut up the ropes. I don't understand why I didn't use it in the first place, but I was so panicked that I didn't think of pulling it out when the man started chasing me. Before I could even pull it out, I heard footsteps coming towards me. They ripped the bag off my head, and the man was old and raspy looking. Had a really rough beard, scar on his face, and was bald. He smelled of alcohol and blood. When I looked around, I noticed something that made my heart sink. There was body parts all over the room. Arms with the hands still attached hanging off the walls, legs, disgustingly enough, even torsos, breast exposed, but with cuts all over them. I started to hyperventilate and have a panic attack. The man covered my mouth and slapped me, and said if I tried screaming or annoying him, he'd kill me, sooner than he killed the others. I decided to just keep my mouth shut, but my breathing was still out of control. I didn't know what to do. What were my options here? He turned away and told the other man to prep me, so to speak. The other man just nodded and walked over to a table full of grafting tools and dentist tools, things normal doctors would have. He put on some rubber gloves and a mask, covered in blood, so it was clearly used before. Hell, even the tools still had blood on them. I figured that these were sociopaths and they were just at some sick game. Maybe they were necrophiliacs, I didn't really know. I slowly slipped my pocket knife out of my back pocket, still having my breath escalated. I couldn't slip up, not even once. As this thought ran through my head, my pocket knife slipped out of my hand and fell onto the floor. Luckily, the man didn't take notice and just kept prepping. I bounced the chair backwards a little bit, and then he turned and looked at me and told me to sit still. Escaping wasn't going to happen. He told me that the only door leading out of here had steel bars on the outside and would stay locked until he knocked with a secret code knock. I kept my mouth shut, but I slightly and slowly nudged the chair until my foot was on top of the knife and I could clasp it with both feet. I slowly brung it up to the back of my hands and grabbed it and started to cut the ropes. Very, very slowly and very, very lightly I cut the ropes. Eventually, I broke through them, but right when I broke through the first layer, he turned to me holding a pair of clamps. He put the clamps on my forehead. I didn't understand why, but they were definitely big enough to cover it. He said, in case you get any ideas, I'll start twisting this. Slowly, he started to crank on the clamps and it started to press in my temples. I started to scream in agony, knowing that if he were to keep doing it, I would die within a minute. He stopped and kept the pressure on, only releasing it a little bit so I wouldn't pass out. As he turned away, he grabbed some pliers and opened my mouth. He looked at my teeth and started pressing on them with it. He put in my best tugged-in tooth that I was very prideful for since I'd had it since I was a kid and it was the first grown-up tooth I ever had. He hesitantly, but roughly, grabbed the tooth and ripped it out of my face. I gasped in pain and screamed in agony, and he just slapped me and told me to shut up. He took out several other teeth before he put the pliers back down, and my mouth was dripping with blood. I thought I might die of blood loss before anything else. He then took a hose, tilted my head back, and just washed my mouth aggressively. I couldn't even breathe. I thought I'd die then and there. But then he put my head back down and I was gasping for air. He did the secret code knock on the door, which I memorized for future reference, and he walked out. I kept cutting through the ropes with tears in my eyes and eventually got all the way through. Turns out my feet were almost tied, but they hastily did it, so I was still able to get them free pretty easily. I walked over to the door and I heard him coming back. There was a window on the door, so I knew he'd look in to see if I was still there. I quickly ran back and sat down, with my hand still, quote-unquote, tied behind me. He opened the door and said, "You better be a good little girl, or I'm gonna make you in all sorts of pain." His grammar disgusted me. Of course he didn't say that properly. He probably wasn't even from this area. His skin was darker, not quite black, more Mexican if anything. I was trying to memorize what I could so I could tell the police if I ever got out of here. He started coming towards me, holding a knife. I figured that he knew I escaped and I didn't know what to do. I was frozen in fear. He pressed it up against my chest and cut down my shirt, ripping it off. He said, "I just talked to my boss and he said I can have a little fun before I continue. This will be fun for me, maybe not you." Out of impulse, I took the knife that was still in my hand and slammed it into his chest. He grunted in pain and dropped his knife. I was so amazed that it actually worked that I was frozen. He looked at me and ripped it out, and he called me a bitch before slapping me. I fell to the ground from the force, right in front of his knife. As he was about to tackle me, I did something that to this day I don't know whether I regret or feel bad about, but I wish there was another way. As he tried to go on top of me, I turned around and plunged the knife into his chest again, but his was a lot bigger. I directly hit his heart, which killed him almost immediately. I took the knife back out, and since I'd memorized the secret knock, knocked on the door again with his secret knock. The man opened it and said, "Done already? That was quick," and then laughed it off. He didn't even look at me as he just turned around. I stabbed him in the back, not deep enough to kill him, but enough that he probably wouldn't chase me, and I ran as fast as I could. I ran, and it turns out this building wasn't very big. It was an old barn in the forest near where I lived. I was amazed since I actually knew where I was. I'd just never seen the barn before. But I could see the forest and I could see the smoke coming from my house. I ran, and when I got home, I burst through the door. My mom had went looking for me, so she wasn't home. And then I heard running footsteps up to the door. I figured it was my mom. It turns out it was the man I'd stabbed in the back. He followed me. I was frozen in fear, and I didn't know what to do. I grabbed a frying pan off the oven, which had been on the heat, so I'm assuming my mom was making dinner before she left to go find me. The man laughed as he pulled out a very, very large blade, about the size of a machete. He said there was no point in keeping me alive anymore, that I already knew too much, and that I'm the first girl to ever escape. He went to go charge me, and I threw the pan. It missed, of course, and the man was already on top of me. He started to hack and slash, but I blocked with my arms, which gave him deep cuts and gashes. The man was laughing manically, saying he was going to kill me and then fuck my corpse until I was dead again, so that my body would be tainted, that my sweetness and innocence would be gone forever even after I died. As he was yelling this and he was about to make it all the way through my arm and give me an amputation, a gunshot went off. The man stopped and slumped over. My mom had went and grabbed one of the marshals near the police station to try and look for me. Most of the time, the marshals wouldn't do anything about it since I'd only been gone for about 3 hours, but she knew this marshal really well, and they go all the way back since high school. So he was willing to help out. I was immediately rushed to the hospital to take care of the head wound that I got from the baseball bat and to put my arms back together. I still can't feel my left arm, and those men were never caught, only the one that died. He had a criminal record of previous rape, bestiality, and kidnapping. I don't know who those men were, but soon after the incident, me and my mom moved out, and they did a raid on the building. The man that was originally there, that I killed, was gone. Somebody else had moved his body, they said. So they weren't alone in there. They were just the two that were on patrol. They said I was the lucky one. They had killed over 40 young girls around my age. What's weird is I never heard of any disappearances in my town. Whoever those sick bastards are, I hope all of them find justice one day. Hey guys, I just want to thank you all so much for watching. This was a bit of a longer one, and it did take this girl a lot of courage to share this with me, and I am so grateful she did. And she's a new addition to the channel, so thank her very much, and like and subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good day.